Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to Sixth Grade Math Order of Operations. Pause while you write the lesson title in your interactive student notebook. Pause again while you write today's lesson objective in your interactive student notebook. Today's objective is I can write and solve numerical expressions involving whole number exponents using order of operations by completing practice problems with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. The Arizona State standard that we'll be working on in this lesson is evaluate and create expressions using whole number exponents and positive rational numbers. Okay, let's take a look at this key vocabulary and key idea. The vocabulary should already be in your notebook. If it is not, you need to be sure you get it there in the words worth knowing section. A numerical expression is an expression that contains only numbers and operations, so no equal sign there. And to evaluate or find the value of a numerical expression, use a set of rules called the order of operations. So our key idea looks at that order of operations. First, you perform operations in parentheses, and then you evaluate numbers with exponents. And number 3, you multiply or divide from left to right. That's very important. And then you add or subtract from left to right. So we often write this as parentheses, exponents, so P-E-M-D, and I always put an arrow over the top of the M and D to remind you that it goes from left to right, A, S for addition and subtraction, and we put another arrow on the top of the A and the S to remind you that it goes from left to right. So pause and write this key idea, the order of operations, and our abbreviation in your math notebook. So let's move on to example 1 using order of operations. First, we're going to evaluate 12 minus 2 times 4. So remember, we look at parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, left to right, addition and subtraction, left to right. So we don't have any parentheses, we don't have any exponents, so our next thing is to multiply and divide left to right. So we go through our problem and we go, oh, well, there's a multiplication. So we multiply 2 times 4, which is 8. So we change that 2 times 4 into an 8. And then all that's left is the 12 minus 8. So 12 minus 8 equals 4. So that would be our answer. Letter B gets a little bit trickier. We do have parentheses, and inside the parentheses is a 3 times 5. So 3 times 5 equals 15. So that's where we have our 15 here. So our new problem is 7 plus 60 equals, 7 plus 60 divided by 15. And so we don't want to add first, we want to divide because division comes before addition. So we divide 60 by 15, which is 4, and then we add 7 plus 4 equals 11. And that's our answer. Example 2, we're going to use order of operations with exponents. So you've learned exponents in a previous lesson, so you need to think back on how exponents work. So we're evaluating 30 divided by 7 plus 2 to the third power times 6. So remember, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, left to right, addition, subtraction, left to right. So first thing we need to do is parentheses. Inside our parentheses is 7 plus 2 to the third. Within that 7 plus 2 to the third, we do the exponent first because exponents come before addition. So 2 to the third power we're evaluating 2 to the third power equals 8. So we still have our parentheses, and in that parentheses we now have 7 plus 8, which equals 15. So now we're going to multiply and divide left to right. So if we were driving a car through the problem, we would come to division first. So we take 30 divided by 15, which equals 2, and then we have a times 6. So 2 times 6 equals 12, and that's our answer. At the top of example 3 is a reminder that the symbols X, which is not really an X, and the dot are used to indicate multiplication, and you can also use parentheses to indicate multiplication. For example, 3 times 2 plus 7 is the same as 3x. That's a times 2 plus 7. So from now on, when you see a number or a variable and it's just sitting next to parentheses, that means multiplication. Pause and write that in your notes. Now let's take a look at example 3 using order of operations. We're going to evaluate 9 plus 7 times 5 minus 2. So we're going to first do the parentheses, 5 minus 2, which equals 3. So 7 times 3, and then we look for exponents. We don't have anything. And then we look for multiplication or division, and we multiply the 7 times 3, because we've got the 7 just parked outside those parentheses. So 7 times 3 equals 21, and then we add the 9 to it. 9 plus 21 equals 30. Now I'm going to take a little side trip here and show you how this looks when I do it on a sheet of paper or on the board. So I do 9 plus 7 times 5 minus 2. So my advice to students is always to do one step at a time and to rewrite the problem every time, which is exactly what the book is showing you. And when you write it on your paper, it might look something like this. So 5 minus 2 equals 3, and 7 times 3 is there. So we just write that. We don't want to do a multiple step because we just do one step at a time. And then we look and we go, well, what would we do next in here? We would do the multiplication next. So 7 times 3 equals 21. And then we have our plus 9 ahead of that. And 9 plus 21 equals 30. And then it kind of looks like an upside down triangle or a funnel. And you get your answer there at the bottom. So let's do letter B like that. And we're still doing what the book tells us to do. So I'm not varying from the book. It's just kind of easier to write it in your notebook this way. So kids get in trouble when they try to do these horizontally instead of vertically. So don't worry about using up space in your notebook. It's okay, we have more notebooks. So we start with 15 minus 4 times 6 plus 1 divided by 2 to the second power. So we're going to look at parentheses first. So 6 plus 1 equals 7. And then we put everything back exactly the way it was. And we're multiplying that 7 by a 4. And in front of that we have 15 minus everything. So our next step is exponents. So we're evaluating the exponents. 2 to the second power is 4. Put everything back exactly where it was. That's a multiply by 4. And a 15 minus everything. Then we do multiplication and division left to right, which leaves us multiplying 4 and 7. 4 times 7 is 28. And then we're going to divide 28 by 4, which equals 7. And then we have our 15 minus 7 in front of that, and 15 minus 7 equals 8. So it's like our big funnel. So every step, your problem should get a tiny bit smaller because you've done one step, and then you should have a single number at the bottom. Example 4 is our real-life application. You buy foam spheres, paint bottles, and wooden rods to construct a model of our solar system. What is your total cost? So in the table, you have all of your information. It says use a verbal model to solve the problem. When you see this term verbal model, it means that you are going to use the words to create a numerical expression, which you should know what that is because we talked about it earlier in the lesson. So the cost of 9 spheres is 9 times 2, and the cost of 6 paint bottles is 6 times 3, and the cost of 8 rods is 8 times 1. So the first thing you're going to do is multiply, and if I were helping you with this problem, I would write it out like this. Plus 8 times 1. And I would do one step at a time. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 6 times 3, plus 8 times 1. And then I would go 18 plus 6 times 3 is 18, plus, and then I would ask you, do we really need the 8 times 1, or can we just multiply in our heads and go, that's 8? And you would say, of course we can do that, Mrs. Timms. And then we would add this up. 18 plus 18 is 36 plus 8, and 36 plus 8 is 44. And we have our little funnel action going on there. So your total cost is $44. So please remember to complete your lesson. You need to be sure you have great notes in your ISN. You need to do your Google form questions, review your lesson if needed, and complete your Big Ideas math assignment in your Spiral notebook, and submit your assignment when it is 100% correct and not before, and track your progress on your playlist.